Hi, so today we're going to talk about how you can play minor on every single chord. Hi, welcome to Jazz Guitar Scrapbook. Please feel free to like and subscribe. I don't know why you wouldn't feel free to do that. Maybe you feel honour bound to treat me with icy contempt. So today we're going to talk about minor conversion, which I think is something associated with Pat Martino. This is something I noticed first of all in Charlie Christian solos and then later on in Parker and so on and so forth. It's based on the principle of substitution, really, substitution formula, or formulae, should I say. Now, there's a lot of scales discourse in jazz generally, and if you have spent some time with chord scale theory or Barry Harris's stuff, you'll recognise some of this material from that angle. But I don't want to talk about scales today. I want to talk about licks and subs. I think this is the traditional way that people did it, and if you analyse a solo from the 1940s or 50s and go, oh, that person's playing a melodic minor mode or something, this is probably where it came from, this kind of thinking. Okay, so a couple of things before we start. First of all, I'm going to be relating the minor chord to our basic chord sounds. So that's major, major sixth and major seventh, minor. So I'm sort of lumping all of the minors in together, okay? And then we have dominant, straight dominant, you know, the kind of more sort of major key dominant, I suppose you call it, altered dominant, and then we're going to have half diminished as well. So I think between those 5 chord qualities, that will basically handle most things you're going to come across in jazz. For example, I'm going to use some simple tunes, things like Autumn Leaves, blues, and so on. Right, the next thing we're going to need is some lines. We need some minor key, cheesy bebop licks, basically. I've taken these from solos and heads and things like that and stolen them shamelessly. Here's one. That's probably going to be our main one for this video. Here's some other ideas. Okay, this is a nice one from Charlie Christian. Bebop, I like this one. Yeah, that's a great little quote to throw in. Actually, this stuff is very closely associated in my mind with the practice of quotation. Really, I think quotation, taking bits of tunes or solos from other people, especially like famous ones, and then just plonking them into your solo, is one of the primary ways improvisation was practiced back then. And if you listen to people like, Cannonball Adderley, Charlie Parker, and music is absolutely full of quotes. So I think this is a beautiful way to work. So the first skill you're going to need to know is to transpose, right? And this is actually quite easy on guitar. So if I take my first lick, upper half step. Now, that's fine, but in jazz often we're leaping around by fourths, for instance. So if you make that leap, that's a little bit of a handful, so we want to have some different shapes so that we can keep them in the same part of the neck. For instance, or yeah, things like that. So you don't have to just go ooh, 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 up and down the neck, okay? I mean, it sounds obvious, but that's something to work on, right? Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is a 2-5. This is a fantastically important relationship because it will help you read and understand lead sheets, jazz standards, so on and so forth. Well, I don't say 2-5-1. 2-5-1, of course, is this, D minor 7, G7, C major, and the name 2-5 comes from the position of the minor chord and the dominant chord within the key. But in jazz, often the 2-5, the so-called 2-5, is divorced from the 1. So a good example might be the first few bars of Stella by Starlight. That's a 2-5, but there's no 1. It moves to another 2-5, and then to another 2-5, and then finally to what you might call a 1 chord. So it's very important for this style of jazz, post-bop, post-war sort of music, to map 2-5s through these changes and 2-5 lines. However, we can also use this relationship to relate the dominant chord to a minor chord. And here's a good example. So we're going to take a 12-bar blues in B flat. Our first chord is B flat. We're going to use the 2-5 relationship, which is upper fifth, to play F minor. And then to the 4 chord, same relationship, fifth up or fourth down, from this E flat 7 to a B flat minor, and then back to the F minor on B flat 7. Then we go to let's go straight to a 5 chord. So it's just a 3 chord blues. 5 chord is F7. We're going to play C minor like that, and we can put it into a little head. Already we've got a little composition almost. This would be more of an etude, I suppose. This is a great way to practice. I definitely encourage you to do it. Okay, let's do the same thing on All of Me. Let's get some dominant chords in, and also minor chords. We're going to ignore the first chord, C major, and we're going to apply our line to E7. And we're going to do, the E7 was related to a B minor there. And then to the A7, we're going to relate it to an E minor. And then we'll relate D minor to D minor, okay? Then E7 again, so B minor, A minor, D7, so we stay on A minor, G7 relates to D minor. And then you can carry on with the etude like that. I'll do a few etudes in the handout for this video. One thing the clever people among my audience might notice is that this line doesn't fit comfortably in C major. It actually takes you a little bit outside the key. And I think there's a lot of people who have been taught that everything should always be like as diatonic as possible. So if that was the case, we'd be kind of using some sort of E7 altered, maybe, you know. The sort of flat 9 sounds anyway. I'll link to a Dennis Chang video where he briefly discusses this actually. But the truth is that if you go to the music itself, you'll often find improvisers using these options, cutting and pasting on the minor on the dominant. My favourite, of course, being Charlie Christian. And if you have a look at his solos and things like I Found a New Baby, you'll see him do that a lot. And it sounds great, and nobody ever complains about how out of key it is. So the same is true for Charlie Parker, Sonny Stitt. And so on and so forth. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the half diminished chord. We're going to take the one from Autumn Leaves, which is an A minor 7 flat 5 in the usual key. And I don't know if you noticed, but there's a C minor there. So basically the A minor 7 flat 5 chord is a C minor triad on an A bass. This allows us to play our C minor version of the lick on top of the A minor 7 flat 5. Okay, and in context we're going to put this into the 2-5-1 in Autumn Leaves, which is A minor 7 flat 5, D7, G minor 6 or whatever. Okay, so C minor, but that also works very well on the D7 because as quiet as it's kept, actually you can always play the minor chord a step down from the dominant. My favourite example of this again comes from Charlie Christian. Yeah, that's the context of how he plays it in his solo on Rose Room. And this is a beautiful, like D minor major 7th sound. And if I put that D minor major 7th on top of the bass note for D, you can hear how gorgeous that is. Technically it's a kind of, I don't know, 13 flat 9 sus, but who cares? Right, the next one is something you can call altered or tritones minor. And this is very simply when we put the minor a half step up from a dominant. And we get this. Beautiful, huh? right? And we can construct voicings this way. So for instance, if I put the E flat triad on top of a D bass, pretty cool, huh? These might not be sort of alto-dominant voicings that you might have thought of before. It's always good to apply this stuff in terms of voicings as well. In terms of playing a minor 2-5-1, we can use a C minor here over the A minor 7 flat 5, E flat minor here, and then use G minor. You might know that from chord scale theory, for instance, but the difference is here I'm just using a lick, okay? Which to me makes it sound more organic. Now this lick is a little bit too long to fit into Autumn Leaves, which is more like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so it's one chord per bar, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and a little bit longer than one bar, right? So we can cut it down, and then play the full length one. That's a known hack for playing 2-5-1s, by the way. It's the minor third movement. But anything you can do for a minor 2-5-1, you can also do for a major 2-5-1. So let's do this on Autumn Leaves. Really, that gets you through most stuff. The only chord I haven't covered is the major. In bop, swing music, stuff like that, the major is usually kept pretty simple. We might just have like a major 7th or a major 6th or something. But if we want to get a little bit more crazy, we can apply the minor on the major. There's two ways to apply the minor on the major, and they both lead to exoticness. So the first one is simply to take the relative minor. So here I am, B flat major for Autumn Leaves, for instance. I'm going to use a G minor because it's a minor third down. Okay. So we're going to do that. Let's play up here. We end up on this E over the B flat. So we get the sharp 11, which is a pretty exotic sound for the 1950s, right? Most often used at the end of a tune, but obviously really common in post-bop, fusion, the music that was to happen in the decades afterwards. So this is a useful sound for contemporary jazz, right? Now my favourite is when we take advantage of the fact that there's a minor triad here, right? And we use a D minor, and if we do that, we get this. Oh, that's not a note you would normally play over a major 7th chord, but the crazy thing is, if I put that in context, it sounds really cool. And this is a major 7 sharp 11 flat 9 sound. This is a sound that Warren Marsh, for instance, championed in his teaching. He taught a 2-octave version of a major scale, which included this note. So that's really cool. Another, not in this particular line necessarily, but another one you might have if you have a line that leans on the 7th of the minor. That kind of sound. If I put that on the B flat major, you'd have a major 7 sharp 9 sound, which is a little bit more common. You find it in way shorter tunes and stuff. Be on the lookout for that kind of thing. They're beautiful sounds. I find it interesting that it just falls so easily out of this kind of substitution process. You aren't limited, by the way, to just using minors. You can use any of the chords and any of the other chords. So for instance, you can apply dominants to everything. You could apply half diminished chords to everything if you wanted to. And then what you end up with is kind of a big sort of framework or network sort of system that allows you to plonk any chord on any other chord. Also, these are not the only options by any means. There's many more out there. Anyway, I hope you find that useful. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.